Yamohe Naizen. This is P.T. Burnham from the Zinzerna Music Hour, and I'd like to share another patch on the Pulsar. This one is actually a descendant of S.R. Wilson's patch Walk and Talk number 3, where different rhythms are run through switches and then to the triggers for the drum oscillators. S.R. Wilson's technique in this particular video was to run the 4 and the 16 through one of the switches and the 8 divider through the second switch. Now, running those switches out to what I call the clickifiers, which turn the steady pulses of these clocks to click pulses, so that we just get a t instead of a long drone. Once you have the signals running from the switches out to the clickifiers and then to your various drum triggers, we're using the hi-hat and the snare drum, then you run an LFO from the LFO section here. You take one of the outputs of the LFO, you run it through an attenuator, and then you run 2 versions of it. One is a normal version and the other is an inverted version. You get the inverted version by running it through the inverter up here. And you take that inverted output, put it on one of the CVs for the switches, and you take the regular signal and put it in the other. And you get an alternating, as you can imagine, the 2 switches, neither one will be present when the other one is. It just switches between the 2. And you can control the rhythm of that switching with both the attenuator and this knob here. I've got the square wave running in Wilson's patch. He had the triangle out. I found it better to run the square out, and that gets you this. This is an interesting tip that I picked up while doing this stuff. It's hard to just mute the hi-hat. I've got these running through separate outputs, and muting them is a little bit difficult. But all you have to do is take the attack way up, and basically it'll sound like nothing. So once I had this going, I actually noticed that it was a good rhythm to do this song that I've been working on. So I just ran a kick drum through the 0.1. It's going from the 1 peg up here through the 0.1, which acts a little bit like those clickifiers that I told you about earlier. So in addition, that LFO is being synced from the 0.25 peg. So we've got that all going. And then I threw in some of the stuff that I was working on from Guire's patch, number 1, which was the droning reverb trick, where you take the 10 volt from here and run it through a VCA, a voltage controlled attenuator, and out to the reverb. And the voltage you're using to control it is determined by this control voltage pads here. So I get something like that. And then I have 2 other sound sources. One is this. Actually, I have 3, because I also have a noise burst here. And the noise burst has a sort of, basically a square wave synced oscillation to it, because it's actually just a clock signal. Okay, so we've got that. Oh, an interesting thing also about the string here is that I can mod it by actually hitting the modulation peg. Love it. Love that ability. The second way that I have furthered the touch sensitivity idea is I also have a sequence, and this requires a second piece of gear, actually 2 pieces of gear technically. I've got a sequence running on the make noise no control here, and that sequence is determining 2 things. It's running the speed of this low frequency oscillator on the strega, which is going out into the pulsar, and it is also running a sequence directly to the CV in of the bass track here. Now I'm going to go ahead and trigger this bass track, and you'll hear that sequence running. It doesn't sound great, and it needs constant retuning a little bit. But in addition to that, you could run any sequence. I mean, here I'm using the no control, but you could do a tempo synced, something a lot neater, you know, a lot more in sync with what's going on. And I'm running that out through the reverb mostly. Take that low filter down. Sounds really strange. You can obviously play with the work. Also, you can record. Play with the warp. Or you can rhythmically trigger the bass. And the cool thing is that that rhythm is independent of this one. So you can do a lot of strange things with that and make it so that you just turn it off by unclipping it. You could also make connection with your body. And that's another thing we've got going, is a sequence from the top row of sequenceable knobs. We've got a sequence running directly from that LFO in. So we're basically treating that as we would this clock or this. In that it doesn't really sound until we make the connection physically. And you can just emphasize different parts of that. And what I want to do is bring it. There we go, that's something nice. So that main sequence is going. You can play with different parts parts of that melodic structure and throw it in along with the other sequence that's running, which you can also turn off by unplugging it. Turn it back on by hitting the switch. So I hope you enjoyed this, and hit subscribe, ring the bell to know that the next video is coming. And until then, have fun patching, whatever you're patching. That's the important part.